I don't remember the exact date anymore. The cold has erased a lot of details. But I remember the snow. It was December 1944, somewhere in the Ardennes, and the forest felt like the inside of a freezer that God had forgotten to close. Our unit had been scattered by shells and confusion. Radio broken, map useless in the dark. I was just one tired American private walking through trees that all looked the same. The only thing louder than the crunch of snow under my boots was the thought in my head. If I stop, I die. If I walk in the wrong direction, I die slower. After hours of white and black and nothing else, I saw it. A single yellow square in the distance, trembling through the branches, light from a window. No artillery, no voices, no movement. Just that glow, like a piece of warmth someone had dropped in the middle of enemy territory. I knew it could be a trap, a German outpost, even civilians who would turn me in. I also knew my fingers were so numb I could barely feel my rifle. Sometimes survival doesn't leave you with good options, only different kinds of risk. The cabin was small, made of rough logs, roof humped under the weight of snow. Smoke crawled out of the chimney in a thin line, vanishing into the night. I crept around the side, heart pounding, and peeked through the frosted window. Inside, a woman moved slowly near a fire, stirring something in a pot. The room looked poor but tidy. I could smell wood smoke even through the cracks. No uniforms, no visible weapons. Just a civilian kitchen in the middle of a military nightmare. I didn't see the 3 German soldiers until one of them stepped into view and took off his helmet. They were young, younger than I wanted them to be. No medals, no fancy coats, just standard field uniforms crusted with snow and mud. One of them held his hands so close to the fire I thought his gloves might catch. They spoke in low voices, the kind people use when they're too tired to be angry. As I watched, the woman ladled soup into tin bowls. Each soldier nodded to her with a kind of quiet respect, not like conquerors, like hungry boys who knew they didn't deserve seconds. I remember thinking, this is wrong. They're supposed to look like monsters. It would be easier if they did. I could have walked away. I could have tried to circle around, keep marching, freeze with my pride intact. Instead, I found myself lifting my hand and knocking lightly on the door. 3 taps. Not loud enough to wake the forest, just loud enough to change my life. Inside, the voices stopped. Chairs scraped, metal clicked, rifles probably. For a heartbeat, I saw myself from the outside, an idiot standing in enemy country asking strangers for mercy on Christmas Eve. The door opened a crack, and the woman looked out first. Her eyes took in everything in one glance, my uniform, my shivering, the exhaustion I couldn't hide. Before she could close it, a German soldier came up behind her. He saw my helmet, my flag, my rifle, and his shoulders tensed, then dropped, as if even his anger was frozen. We stared at each other, both too tired to hate properly. Then the woman did something insane. She stepped between us and said, in halting English, "No shooting here, not tonight." She pointed at my rifle, then at theirs, then at a spot beside the door. "Guns, outside," she said, tapping the wall. "If you come in." The German hesitated. I hesitated. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, arguing about who should jump first. Finally, he set his rifle against the wall slowly, like a man lowering a coffin. His comrades followed. My hands shook as I did the same. An American weapon leaned next to German ones, snow collecting on all of them. Unarmed, we walked into the same pool of firelight. The heat inside the cabin hit like a fist. My face stung as frozen skin remembered it was alive. The woman pointed at the table. "Sit," she said, as if commanding children. We obeyed. Bowls appeared, steam rising from thin soup. Bread was sliced into careful, equal pieces. She poured what little coffee she had into mismatched cups and topped them with hot water. Nobody toasted, nobody joked. But as we ate, the sound of spoons against metal and the crackle of the fire did something artillery hadn't managed all week. They made the world feel almost normal. At first, we spoke like we were negotiating a ceasefire with our own tongues. One German pointed at himself and said, "Karl." He pointed at the others. "Joseph." "Martin." Then he pointed at me. "Tom," I answered, because giving my real name felt like a small act of trust I could afford. We showed photographs, creased images of wives, girlfriends, parents, babies. Every time someone said, "my mother," or "my brother," the room tilted a little more away from the war and toward something older and stronger. The idea that people are people, even in the wrong uniform. The woman produced a small branch stuck in a jar, decorated with scraps of paper and one piece of shiny foil. It wasn't a tree, not really, but in that cabin it was enough. One of the Germans hummed a carol under his breath. Another joined softly. I recognized the melody from home, different words, same hope. Without thinking, I started humming too. For a few minutes, the war existed only as a silence outside the walls. Inside there was wood smoke, tired smiles, and the feeling that, for one night, we had all agreed not to kill each other. At first light, the woman shook us awake. Her face was kind, but her voice was firm. "Morning," she said. "You go now. Different ways." Outside, the forest was quiet, a fresh layer of snow softening every footprint. Our rifles waited where we'd left them, dusted in white. We picked them up without aiming. No one wanted to be the first man to turn Christmas back into war. Karl looked at me and said, in slow English, "Maybe after we drink beer. No uniforms." "Yeah," I said, "no uniforms." Then we turned and walked in opposite directions into a world that would soon remember we were enemies. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they died in the next firefight. Maybe they went home and tried to forget my face the way I sometimes try to forget theirs. The woman in the cabin, she might have spent the rest of the war feeding strange, hungry boys from both sides and telling them to leave their weapons at the door. What I know is this: whenever Christmas comes around and people talk about peace on earth like it's a song instead of a job, I think of that night, a rifle standing together in the snow, of a table where accents and flags mattered less than empty stomachs, and I remember that for a few stolen hours in a frozen forest, we proved something the war itself kept denying. Peace is possible. It just takes someone brave enough to say, "Not tonight," and mean it.